Welcome everyone to another episode of How to Scale an Agency. I'm your host, AJ Quesada, co-founder of Revenue Boost, where we help agencies get clients and grow. And today I'm here with my good friend, Mike Kosel, for a really, really special thing that we've never done before. We're doing a 3-part series around how to productize your offers, simplify your services, and scale your agency to the moon and back. We did one series before, a 3-part series on how to find and close whale clients, how to find really big deals. And people really liked that, so I wanted to do another series. That series was just me as well, so this is the first guest 3-part series. So very excited for it. And actually, this is Mike, you're actually the guest we've had back the most for episodes. So really cool to be back here for, I think, part 3 or part 4 now or something.
Very cool. Glad to be back.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. Well, in case anybody suffered the tragedy of missing the previous episodes you and I have done together, you want to just give a quick intro on, who you are, just, what your business does in a nutshell?
Sure. I'm Mike. I'm Eastern European, so hence my accent. I'm a lawyer by education and former fraud investigator turned business consultant turned agency owner turned I don't know what's gonna be next. I scaled 3 agencies myself. I then in that process, a lot of people started asking me like, how do you do that? Like, how did you get it to up, a certain amount of revenue a month so quickly, yada yada. So I started talking to people about how to scale their agencies, and then throughout that kind of process, I moved from running my own agency to helping others grow. And so I help with scaling agencies. Basically, my kind of promise is to scale your agency to $100,000 per month with a really good profit margin, because that's one of the problems is the low profitability of agency business model. So part of the conversation today, we'll talk about how to kind of prevent the low profitability and how to fix that and how to get to higher levels. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. I'm excited as well. For anyone who actually has missed the last episodes, if you scroll down on the podcast, you'll see a couple episodes I did with Mike in the past. One of the ones we did that I really liked was the 27-step checklist on just exactly how to scale your agency, what to improve at each different revenue level, each different department. That's one of my favorites, and I urge everyone who's missed that to go look back at previous episodes and find that. And I think that was just really cool because you just clearly know your stuff, or you've clearly scaled a lot of agencies, right? Because you know exactly the problems at each level, how to fix them, and what to do next. And even if I know the show is How to Scale an Agency, and everyone here pretty much is an agency, but I know we do have some other people listening as well. Even if you're not necessarily an agency or you wouldn't call yourself that, like these principles of productizing and scaling are going to be useful to you no matter what. So really excited for that. And also, you used to work with Cat Howell, right? Some people don't. I think people know that, right?
Yes. Back in the day, I was a coach, and I had a chance to work with hundreds of agencies as a coach on how to grow their agencies, basically, right? We did funnels for agencies, we did scaling, and then we did operations and a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, that was a fun project. Yeah,
that must have been awesome, and must have been just a cool company to be part of. And Kat Howell, she was like huge for a while, and then I think just kind of left the business abruptly, right?
Yeah. She was huge for a while. I think she just got maybe burnt out a little bit. I don't know kind of the story, but like she switched her gears, and she's one of those that can really monetize her knowledge and monetize her approach to things. And so now she's she has a book, she's in the kind of mindset and personal growth area now. Very successful still, again, and kind of close the loop again, because she's now helping other people through marketing as well, like a little bit in that space. So she kind of closed the helping agencies episode, but she opened another one. So
yeah, that's funny. We always come back to what we know, right? Yeah, that's pretty cool. No, I remember she had like the biggest Facebook ads training program at one point, or like one of the biggest. I remember always
it was great. It was super fun. It was really cool to be part of the community as well. Like a lot of like really cool community of people supporting each other. It's one of those communities where even though like all of the community members were agency owners, so we're basically going after this. We're competitors, right? And so, but nobody really behaved like that. Everyone was like, "Hey, this funnel is working for me. This is what I'm doing. Like, this is
that's
cool,
awesome. Yeah.
The pie is massive. I mean, like, there's 370 million people in the U.S. alone. Hundreds of thousands of businesses that need marketing help. So, like,
for sure, we might as well help each other. Yeah, I'm a big actually believer in collaboration over competition. because I think, yeah, like you said, just said, the pie is so massive, we're better off helping each other and that's why we have this podcast, How to Scale Agency. Technically, everyone that's listening could be a competitor to us in some way or shape or form, right? But
Sure.
I think there's more to gain by working together and helping each other versus trying to just keep everything to yourself, you know?
Yeah, well, it's a concept called, so there's cooperation and there's competition. When you combine the two, it's called co-opetition, right? So it's a cooperation of competitors. Yeah, it's an actual concept in the business strategy kind of space.
That's cool.
So yeah,
Yeah, very
that's
interesting.
what we do.
Well, cool. So before we get into, I just want to give some context for this 3-part series before we get into today, which is part 1. But real quick, like for someone who's maybe heard the term productization or simplify your offers, like they might have some sense for what it means. But what is the end benefit? Like what, by going through what they're going to learn in the next 3 episodes, like how is this going to affect their business, their profitability, their life?
Yeah, well, so long story short, it's going to help you scale. So that's and the reason why is if you try to scale your agency, or like you said, any online service business, there's in an old way or traditional way, that means every new client means you have to kind of increase your delivery resources and assets to apply to that client. Meaning, for example, if you have 3 team members and each team member can work with 5 clients, that means your cap is 15 clients to work at any given time. So if you land a 16th client or 17th client, then all of a sudden you have to have another team member, right? And so that means your business just grows. Sure, it grows in terms of revenue, but it also grows in terms of operations. It grows in terms of team. It grows in terms of all the other things. And so your overhead goes up. That means your revenue goes up, but your profitability not necessarily goes up with it, right? So because you have more costs. Now, if you so the ultimate idea is to productize, and we'll go into why, what it is, but to productize your service as much as you can, so it's a replicable process or system, a way to deliver your services without the costly customization, because the customization puts a very big has a very big impact on your speed of delivery and the size of the team that you have and all the other things. So again, long story short, productizing your services will help you scale faster, better, with more profits.
Yeah, love it. And it also makes your life 1,000 times easier too, right? Because I know, like, one of my values is simplicity. It's one of our values at Revenue Boost as well. And when we built the cold email agency, we just were, and still now we're only offering cold email. And we will offer other things later, but only once we've completely productized, systemized cold email as a service, right? And aside from the benefits you shared, which I'm excited to get into, like, it's just made my life a lot easier because I only have to think about optimizing one thing. When you have 3 different services under one business, it's really 3 different businesses.
100%. And you know what? It's very, very true what you say. So a lot of people think that the broader they go when it comes to service, the more money they will make, and the more the wider the net, the more clients they will get. But it's actually the opposite, because if you think about it, someone gave this analogy and I really like it. If you think about going broad in terms of your niche or your target market, you cast this wide net. You try to you try to catch all the fish. When you spread the net, the what do you call it, the holes in the net become bigger. Yeah. So that means the bigger fish actually can go through it. But if you tighten it up, it's easier to go and catch more fish.
Oh, that's a good one.
And that's totally true. Like, to go to $1 million, which is $83,000 per month, you really need one target market, find one pain point in that target market, and have one specific solution within that you deliver in a very specific time frame in a very specific way for a very specific monetary exchange, right? So it's all the rule of one. It's just, and if you go all in, that will help you reach that $1 million mark. And to your point, 100%. Like, if you have to spread yourself thin and sell 3 different things and build 3 different things and 3 different offers and then 3 different systems of delivery and different people to hire to deliver that thing, you're very confused. You're not very focused. And if you're focused on this one thing, then that means your delivery is so much easier, because you only deliver one thing. You're great at it. You can automate it. You can package it. You can deliver that with your eyes closed. And then it's also easier to market yourself, because if you think about this, if you need a brain surgery, you go to a brain surgeon. You don't go to a general practitioner. You don't go to a GP, right? So if I'm a real estate agent and I need a marketing agency for my businesses, I'm going to go to a marketing agency that specializes in real estate over someone who does, oh, we do everything for everyone.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, you have case studies, you have testimonials, you have proven, a track record. Yes, you understand the niche. And so that's on the marketing side of things, right? On the delivery side of things, like I said, you have all the systems, and it's a cookie cutter basically approach. And then it's easier to sell, like I said, right? You're the doctor that specializes in fixing that specific problem. So it's just like you said, it just makes your life easier and you scale faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, if you want to ever sell your business or have the option to sell your business, which you all should want that, right? Because even if you think you don't want to sell it, who knows what a future you 10 years later wants, right? Either way, I think a sellable business is just a better business to run. That's why it's sellable. Meaning, if your business is potentially business you can exit from and someone else would want to acquire you, that means it's a really easier to run turnkey business, right? And, I know today we're going to talk about customization and the problem with being a bespoke agency. But from what I've seen from agencies I work with in my own agency, if you customize your services, it's impossible to get out. You're always going to be relied on for everything by everyone. And you're going to find it hard to hire people because they're not going to know what's inside your brain. And you're going to be stuck, burned out forever, right?
Right, exactly.
So yeah, I think that's huge. But anyways, enough talking about the pain points and why people need to listen. Let's get into it. So I know for this first part, which is today, we're going to talk about really the cost of customization and why agencies get stuck here. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, customization doesn't scale, and I think that's a bumper sticker that's very important to put in front of your computer or put on your screen, and just remember that, because really, if you have to, if you get a new client and if you have to go into that relationship with that client and start exploring what it means, what do we need to do for the client, and kind of reinvent the wheel again, then that is the most costly part of that relationship. So that's why I would encourage listeners to do a quick exercise and think about, okay, well, my last client that I landed, let's say they paid you $5,000 for the setup. The setup is usually 4 to 6 weeks. You have to get their assets, whatever you do, it doesn't really matter, right? If you're paid media, if you're outbound, if you're creative, whatever, you need to get the assets, you need to understand what they do, you need to get the brand guide, all these other things, right? So you get the assets, and then you have to come up with a strategy for them, specifically for them, based on what they gave you, and then you have to talk to your team, you have to meet with the client, and you do a kickoff call based on that, and there's a back and forth, yada yada yada. We have calculated the profitability of the setup for any customization project, and it's actually, you cannot have negative profitability, but there's zero. You're losing money in the setup phase. If you really are honest with yourself and you really calculate the amount of energy, how labor intensive it was, how many hours you spend, total, you're actually not making money during the setup phase. You're like, yeah, we landed a client, $5,000, and then you spent $6,000 on kind of onboarding them. And when I say spent, I mean you just look at your internal hourly rate, multiply that by number of hours that you spent on the client, and you'll see that you're not really that profitable, right? So there's a massive cost of customization, because every single time, and then obviously as you customize and you kind of kick it off, then from that point, it's just more profit. It's easier to work with the client. You kind of get to know each other better. So that's great. But if you have to repeat that process every single time, it just adds so much, issues and challenges for you, and you have to repeat the process every single time. You have to get in with, sit down with a team, think about the strategy, talk to, go through the assets, understand this and that, yada yada yada. It's just not making too much sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So and I think that's really I think what tricks people is they don't count their time as money. So if it's I only paid $2,000 in expenses for this project, well, how much time did you spend? And as an owner, your time's worth at least $500 an hour, right? In my opinion, if you think about what you're actually making in profit compared to the value of the business, and eventually it's much more, right? So I think that's and that's typically where the owner is more involved, is in the beginning, the strategy for the client and the research and all of that, right?
Exactly. So I'll give you an example from actually last week. So I onboarded a new client. The way I scaled myself is I productized my service, my consulting, by working in a group setting. But because otherwise you just have number of hours available every day, every week, and you can only work with so many clients, right? So I work in the group settings, but we do have a strategy call. So it's a personalized strategy call that one-on-one. and he, the client just fills out the form and all the information for me. So I quickly identify the gaps so I can guide them, and it's easier for us to work together. And he pointed that one of the projects that was like around $20,000 per month, actually, one of the clients, he said, well, it's 95% profitability. I'm like, well, that's great, but that doesn't sound right. Because explain this to me. It's like, yeah, because I only spend, whatever, I don't remember the number, like only spend this amount of money every month. I'm like, yeah, but you work for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you forgot the 75 hours that you put into this business to actually deliver the service. That's not how you calculate profitability. So like you said, like a lot of people are just forgetting about it. They look at the actual physical cost of, like, we have clay, we use clay for this client, whatever, we use whatever that is, subscription,
Yeah.
But they forget there's a labor cost that you actually have yourself, or your team that you have as well.
Yeah.
And from a financial perspective, it's not how you calculate your profitability.
Yeah, for sure. So, how would you recommend someone calculates the value of their own time? Because that's kind of a tricky thing, right? Like, do they just put an arbitrary number on it?
Yeah, well, you can do that. A couple of thoughts on this. I mean, there's no golden formula. There's just different approaches, and I would encourage everyone to kind of choose the one that makes sense for them. How I like to challenge very often my clients when they go really, really low on their hourly rate, because very often when you're starting out, even when you're like $25,000 per month revenue, you still have a little bit of a confidence issue of like, not procrastinating, but like imposter syndrome, right? Yeah, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe maybe I should charge less. Maybe I'll lower the price. And they very often go below $100 per hour. And so I would ask them, when I work with women, I ask them, okay, well, do you go to a beauty salon? They're like, yeah, okay. How long does it usually take to fix your hair or cut your hair, whatever? Oh, like an hour. Okay, how much did you pay? $200. I'm like, okay. So you pay $200 for an hour of someone else's work, and you value your work at 50 or 75. Delivering massive results for clients and growing their business. This person cut your hair. I'm not saying this is not a good job or anything. There's no value. I'm not saying there's no value in it.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone that's looking at my hair, you guys can see.
Maybe you need to start going to the $200 salon.
Yeah, exactly. I need to go to one. But that's the thing, it's nothing against, people charging that amount of money, but like you are undervaluing yourself because the value that you bring, like let's say, you bring other, businesses money, and then, you make them. I remember one of my first clients, I made him $40,000 in like 8 weeks, I think. We were doing lead generation for him, and he was selling PR back in the day, like PR, CBC, CBA, whatever, all the, Fox Media, whatever.
Yeah.
$40,000, and then I charge him $900, I think.
Yeah.
Like that makes zero sense.
Yeah, and we've all had those stories. I've had plenty of, if I think about clients way back then, I think my first client was, I made to charge him like also $400 or something 6-7 years ago. Yeah. So we've all had that.
Yeah. Right. So always try to think about like what is the actual hourly rate that I'm willing to pay for other services, and what value am I bringing, and perhaps just set your hourly rate at that minimum level that you're willing to pay for other service. Kind of compare to it. The other option is just calculate how much money you want to be making in your business, and divide that by number of hours that you're willing to work in your business. If you have other team members, you can divide that. So this is how you can actually calculate your internal hourly rate, something that you're not showing to your client, by the way. I'm not saying you guys should charge hourly. I'm actually saying the opposite. Never charge hourly, and do not do that. Never do never show a client a package like this is how many hours. No. Always go with deliverables and value. Right?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like that is the base for any calculation. So you divide the goal or the current revenue by the number of hours that you're spending or are willing to spend in your business, and that will give you the hourly rate. Obviously, it's a very simplified. We go into more, but that's a starting point. And then you do a sense check. Like, okay, well, maybe you're not ready to charge $1,000, but if that's kind of is the result of the calculation, but just do a sense check, and you will see like that will open your eyes too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I remember I had one a buddy of mine I used to live with a long time ago. We were roommates like back in the day, and he worked on this one project. He was doing like animation and video, like really quality video editing work. He worked on this one project, and he was doing it himself. He budgeted like $7,000 for it, and basically he was working night and day for like 3 months. I would catch him working all through the night. He would sleep for an hour. I have a picture of him sleeping like sideways on the couch and then waking up to do video editing. And by the end of it, he calculated, he's like, I made $2 an hour for this project. So that's definitely the trap of not knowing the value of your own time, or underpricing or underquoting, right?
Exactly.
But I think aside from productization and the purpose of the series, I think this exercise of assigning value to your time is game changing, right? Because once I started looking at my time as like, I don't want to, like if I'm doing consulting, I don't want to be charging less than $1,000 an hour, right? Because I know the value there, they're going to get 10 times that. And even in my business, like once you have an hourly rate for your time, you start knowing what you can say no to. Oh, why am I doing this invoice? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing my own laundry? Right? Crazy how many entrepreneurs will like delegate everything in their business, but then they'll or they won't. But then they'll go and do their own laundry. Right? Like every entrepreneur, unless you're making less than like a $2,000 a month, you should have someone to clean your house and do your own laundry and all of that. Right? So this also applies to outside of business. Like, don't waste your time on small things that you could pay someone very cheap for too.
100%. Unless you do laundry and listen to AJ's podcast at the same time, that makes sense.
That's fine. Yeah, then we're not dissing.
That's good. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, 100%. I mean, we should, like you said, it's eye-opening in a sense that you then start valuing your time. And you stop wasting your time because it's like more in your face. Like, well, this is actually costing me $500 right now.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, it is costing you $500 if you have other valuable things to do that actually bring that that value back, right? If you're making $2,000 and you're just sitting on your hands and doing nothing and like, I'm not gonna do anything because it's valued at $500, like no, like, so you have to delegate as much as you want or as much as you can, and then do the most impactful, valuable stuff, the things that move the needle in your business, and forget about the small things. When you see that your time is valued at $250 or $500, whatever that is, you will then see that it's actually making a lot of sense to have a VA for $7 or $10 or $15, depending on where you hire them and what they do, to do the things that, like you said, maybe they can do invoicing, maybe they can look at, this Google Sheet, or maybe they can just do outreach for me, or maybe they can respond to some emails, like whatever that is. Just look at the mundane stuff. And by the way, on this, sorry, just a quick kind of sidetrack, one of the most impactful ways that we increase profitability in any agency that we work with is to actually do time tracking. And people hate me for that. Like, dude, like, we don't want to do time tracking. It's a waste of time. I spend more time tracking than actually working. I'm like, that's a problem in itself, but whatever.
You're not doing it right then.
Exactly. And then, they hate me. They're like, oh, we don't want to check on our team. So I need to kind of get them on board and explain like why we do this. But I had agencies where we increase this massive case study that I had 21% profitability increase in 6 weeks just based off of the time tracking exercise. So I asked them to time track every single thing that they do, categorize that based on, was that client work, operations, reporting, whatever that is. And then I just said, well, do we need to do that? Actually, no. Okay, if all the things that you don't need to do, just delete them. So it follows the DAD formula, DAD formula.
Yeah.
Delete, automate, delegate.
Yeah.
Right. So if there's things that you don't have to do, don't do them. If there are things that you can automate them. If there are things that you can delegate them. And that way we kind of trim the fat completely. 21% increase in profitability. So just off of a stupid Google Sheet and time tracking for 2 weeks.
So, I love it. I'm a big fan of that exercise. I had a coach that would make me do that a long time ago. And now I ask my clients to do the same thing, and it's super. And then you can also look at this gives you so much insight, because then you'll see, I'm doing all this stuff that's not actually making sales or bringing in clients or serving them, right?
Exactly.
And you'll find a bunch of other insights that'll surprise you, because you don't really know where your time's going. It's kind of like, especially after a busy day, it's like, I know I worked today, but I don't really know exactly what I did, right?
Yeah. Why am I so tired? What have I done? And don't get me wrong. Like, there's a lot of things that we need to do when it comes to like using our brain, and I'm not saying in other professions people don't use their brain. I'm just saying that if you have a shovel and you have to dig a hole, like at the end of the day you see a hole right in the ground and your hands are dirty and like you're tired, like you can actually physically see that you did something.
Right.
When we sit down and think about strategy, it can be like 3, 4, 5 hours of just research and going down the rabbit hole and talking to ChatGPT, whatever, another rabbit hole, right? And it just, after 5 or 6 hours, your brain is fried and you feel like you haven't done anything. While actually at the end of that exercise is a very, very valuable piece of strategy for a client, for example, and it might only be 2 pages long, because that's what the good strategy should look like. It should be 30 pages that are hard. It's hard to understand, but it's hard to kind of see the value of it, and like, oh shit, I spent a whole day, I haven't done anything. So it's a good, like you said, it's a good exercise to sit down and go through what you actually did, so that you don't also get that mindset hit of like, well, I'm not good enough, I don't do anything, this is not good, la da 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 da. So it kind of has that positive mindset kind of impact as well, to see like, well, I actually did something today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an exercise everyone listening should do, is just go track your time for a week or two. It's gonna give you so many unexpected benefits for sure. But yeah, on the hourly rate thing, all of you as an action item as well is just go figure out what an hourly rate would be based on the formula we shared before. And then before you decide to take on any task or project or client request or anything, or do your laundry, just think, what's my hourly rate worth, and what would it cost me to pay someone else? Because here's the thing: if you value your time at, let's say, $500 an hour, right? Which I believe all entrepreneurs is worth that. Even if you're not making that, like, still think you're building a business, you're gonna sell it one day, and that factors in too, right? If you value your time, let's say $500 an hour, and then someone asks you to do something, and it's something you could pay a VA $5 an hour for, just imagine you're taking a $500 bill and burning it, right? Because that's essentially what you're doing. We don't see these things because we just think all of our time is the same. And it also goes per task, right? So like on a given day, I might do a $10,000 an hour task, which could be coming up with a new offer. I might do a $1,000 an hour task, which could be a sales call, right? And I might do a $50 an hour task, maybe a spreadsheet or something, right? So it's also like thinking about, even within your day, like how can I do more of the, I learned this a long time ago from Perry Marshall. He has this in his book, and that's what, read this like 6-7 years ago, and it changed my mindset. But every task you do has a certain dollar amount to it. So it also just really helps you prioritize your time. Like, how can I spend more time doing the things that are worth a lot of money to the business, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's when you don't know what to focus on, then you should focus on the high value tasks, and it's as simple as that. But you won't know that before you actually calculate that hourly rate. You won't know that before you go through this exercise, 100%. And it allows you also to build a really good routine and mindset. Like, it becomes a habit of like, I'm not gonna do this. It's not because I'm better than this, whatever. It just makes no business sense.
It's wasting money. It's losing money.
It's exactly. And for everyone listening, you guys have to start, like, even if you're a freelancer, if you have a small agency, just start looking at this as a business. It's a business. It's a business operation. It's not an expensive hobby. It's not, start looking at it from that perspective and treat it really seriously from also, because if you want, you will just be stuck at this kind of freelancer mindset of like, I just do this, like your friend who was sleeping on the couch and $2 per hour. That's not gonna go far, right? So yeah, you have to respect yourself as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at all levels of entrepreneurship, I feel like mindset is the biggest game, right, to win. But I feel like especially at that early level of being a freelancer or one-man band, it's purely a mindset thing to get to that next part. Mindset and hustle, right?
Sure.
Just not for $2 an hour. And also don't do your laundry. Just have smelly clothes. But let's so back to productization. I want to also talk about mindset there, right? Because I think I could imagine someone probably out there in the audience thinking, well, if I make a really productized business, I don't want my agency to be a factory, right? I still enjoy the creative work. And what if I standardize my offers and I'm not doing custom? Then are my clients going to get less results? Like, let's talk about just kind of some of those limiting beliefs, I think, in terms of, because it's first you have to actually accept that this is the way forward before you make this shift, right? Sure,
100%. Yeah, that's a good point. There's this misconception about what standardization is and productization is. It's not about copying, pasting, and just slapping a different logo for a strategy.
Yeah.
It's about standardizing your approach to how you deliver, how you onboard a client, how you get a client, how you deliver your work within, and different businesses will have a different kind of room for productization, because let's say a creative agency where you do branding and whatnot and logos. I mean, obviously there has to be room for creative outlet. Like it's not a copy paste and just change a color and a font, right? So there has to be room for that. But there won't be some other agencies where you can actually do something in exactly the same way with a minor tweak for every client. You just have perfected your approach. Like we were talking before we got on live, like you guys perfected the approach for cold outreach. And so you can it's not that for every client you just change something, change the logo, whatever, or the signature at the bottom, right? So, but you have perfected the process. And so now for you, it's so much easier to deliver that process for a new client, which means you make more money, which means the client gets results faster because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to go through the customization that we talked earlier, right? So understanding that productization and standardization is not about killing that creative process. It's about being better at how I deliver. It also means that my results are more consistent for the client, because if I have to go and customize my stuff every single time and go through a different process, I don't know what the result will be. But if I have, after having spent 10 years in the agency world, a proven process of how to get an agency $100,000, I'm going to apply that every single time, no matter what, because I know it works. There are probably 55,000 different ways to kind of cut this pie and deliver it and get the same result. I don't care. I couldn't care less because I have mine. I know it works, and I don't want to experiment on a new client. So for, again, for creative agencies, what that means is like we're using specific tools. We have a very specific, number of revisions. We have an intake form or a process where we analyze, brand voice or whatever you do, in a very specific way. And it takes 1 week and not less and not more. We know exactly what we do and who's doing what. That is standardization. That's part of productization too. It's not about like, oh, copy and paste from Canva. This is a template. Using templates is part of it. Sure, right? That's how you can, let's say you do web design, you can use a template, you can use the same system, you can use Framer or Webflow or WordPress, but that's where you standardize your approach. I only do WordPress, I only do Framer, blah, 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 because I have templates. So you're helping yourself deliver faster, and then you're helping your client get the results faster as well. So it's never about limiting your creativity. It's never about cookie cutter. It's never about, even in my business, the biggest objection when I'm helping agencies go from one-on-one to like a group setting is, oh, my clients won't like it because they want my interaction directly with me, blah, blah, blah. Like, sure, that's an objection, but I've never had I actually have clients who have better results when they join a group program because they can learn from each other versus just from me. I don't have all the answers, and then if we have 50 people in the group at any given time, you can come in and say, hey guys, I see this issue and I can have an idea, but there's 49 other people in the group that can say, hey, great, but we have tested this, learn from our insights as well. So there's kind of that element. And the way I productize myself, I just, have a group setting, right? I standardize my approach to things. I work in a very specific kind of approach or a framework. So in each business, there has to be, there's like I said, level of standardization, productization, but it's never about killing creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really great, just a really, really important point, because we've all had that thought. I've had that thought as well. Hey, if I stop customizing, or if I make this too standardized, it could be too robotic. It could be crappy, right? But like I said, there's just no way to scale without it, and it actually can help you get better, or actually will help you get better results because you have a consistent outcome, right? What I'm hearing from what you said is like, basically you're just putting more constraints and guardrails around it. You can still have creativity, but you're doing it within boundaries, right? And just systemizing everything that you possibly can. And I mean, obviously we all know the example of like, when people think about systems, they think about McDonald's, right? McDonald's systems is so good that they can have 12-year-old kids basically delivering you burgers, right? Now, obviously, the argument against that is, okay, well, McDonald's is different than my business. Agencies are different, but really still the core concepts, I think, are quite the same, Exactly.
It's so the core idea, the core concept is exactly the same. It's just how you do it for your business so that you achieve that same result, right? It's not about copying pasting. It's about finding a way how you can productize and standardize, and just having that mindset of like, well, I need to standardize my approach. I cannot reinvent. I cannot just go through the discovery process every single time and not knowing what the hell I'm doing and how I'm going to do it, right? So
for sure, it's just so mentally taxing too, right? Like just so much mental energy you have to put into each new project. Well, I think it's a great way to end off part one. In part two, we're going to get more into, okay, now we know the bigger picture. Now, how do we start? How do I actually look at my business and decide what niche and what offer, and how do I start creating these structures, right? So thank you all for listening. Excited to get into part two coming next week. So stay tuned for that.